Oh, well, hello. The rain has arrived. I mean, it's not up to much. It's more of a little driving drizzle. But there's a trickle into the water butts and it's dampening the soil. So when I water, it'll absorb better, I suspect. So it's welcome, but it's not going to make much difference. Although the forecast for the remainder of the week is wet. So we'll see. Anyway, it's an exciting time on the plot. Today is the day I plant my squashes. And I do so with a certain amount of trepidation because after 3 months of drought, the rain or the drizzle has arrived today and I'm going to put my squashes out. All the slugs and snails must be going, ooh, lovely jubbly. So, and I'll show you in a minute why I'm filled with trepidation about this. But anyway, it is what it is, and today's a big day. So the plants are fairly big, not as big as I see some people planting out. I do admire the way people get these plants so big so soon. But anyway, I've got them at the size I've got them, and they've got to go out. So I can't, I mean, they're dotted around the site. They've been on my plot for a couple of weeks now, so the issue of hardening off isn't an issue. Anyway, you're very welcome. I'm going to plant the squashes. I've got some main crop potatoes to earth up. We've finished cropping the asparagus now, so I'm going to tie all that in so as it develops those large attractive ferns it doesn't all flop and drop. So let's have a look around at those jobs I've got to do now. Well, here's why I have certain trepidation about putting my squashes out. My neighbour planted his pumpkins about a month ago and they all got bitten off and they withered and died. And this is his second planting of squash plants. In fact, as I look, I can actually see a slug on the stem. So I will do him a favour and I'll pick that off. But you can see they're just being eaten, and I suspect a lot of that is due to the fact that the slugs are hiding under that membrane and coming up through the hole, and of course I'm using membrane to suppress weeds, so I have a similar system. Anyway, it is a cautionary tale of what can happen to squash plants if they're not big enough and the slugs have somewhere to hide. On a slightly happier note, these are the butter beans seeds that Danny gave me from the Grow Up channel. So thank you, Danny. And they're all germinating successfully, never doubted they wouldn't. All looking good. And of course they're going on these frames, but they're not going on for another week or two yet. Again, until they're more substantial plants and they have a chance of beating the slugs, because this wet weather we've got this week is going to be an absolute massacre, because the slugs have been waiting 3 months since winter to come out and chomp their way through my crops. The zinnias are all planted out, my usual traditional flowers on the plot. Some of them have been nibbled by slugs, but because I get here on a Sunday very early, it's still dark when I get here, I'm able to go round, as sad as I am, with a torch and just pluck a few slugs as they're having their early morning breakfast, which I did this morning. So yeah, looking forward to these zinnias growing away from the soil. I have to say, these Lolla Rosso lettuces, they are stunning to look at, and not just tasty to eat but stunning to look at. Love them, but we do need to start eating them or these are just going to go to seed. Well, I'm by the onion bed, but I should just say the Peony Alexander Fleming is looking absolutely magnificent. It's beautiful. Right, big job today. We went out for the day yesterday, and on the way home we stopped off here and we picked one of these onions and took it home for Cheryl to test whether it's worth trying to recover some produce from these bolted onions. And the decision was that it is. Not a lot, but when you've got so many then it's worth chopping a few up and putting them in freezer bags and freezing them. So I'm going to empty this bed largely today. If there's any that haven't bolted, and there aren't many, they'll stay in, but all these bolted onions, or a lot of them, are coming out today. And here's another job I started, the asparagus bed. It's only 4 years old, this asparagus. It was grown from seed, so we've had a real good picking over a month. I am struggling with the weeds in the bed, but anyway, I've decided that we've had enough from it now. I don't want to denude the plants too much, so I've put those canes in, and today I shall string them, because the ferns, as they develop through the summer, have a tendency to flop over the paths. So that's another job today. Another job, going to earth these main crop potatoes up. They're big enough now that they can be started to earth up. And hopefully this little bit of rain we've had has just loosened the surface of that soil. It might be just a little bit easier. Of course, I decided, I'm going to use grass clippings, that's the best way. But I'm not cutting grass at the moment because we've had 3 months of drought and nobody's lawns are growing. So timing was terrible. So it's back to the old-fashioned method. It's not all rosy in the garden. I've taken my eye off the ball. And these peas have dropped. I suspect this has happened overnight with all the rain. You know, these peas are in full growth, and all this rain has made them probably twice as heavy as they were before, and they've pulled away from the frame. So I don't know if I'll do it today. I might get John to give me a hand in the week just to recover these, pull them up, and then rope them closer to the frames. That is a very ominous sky. I may have to retreat for a brew. Right, so these are winter squash uchiki-kuri, or as I've now christened them, you cheeky bugger. And you can see what I'm concerned about. That black plastic is it's going to have slugs lurking. I don't like lurking, but they're lurking underneath that black plastic, watching me as I video now, waiting for these to be put in the ground. However, a week ago I lifted it back and put some slug pellets down, some organic slug pellets. I don't mind using slug pellets, I don't have anything against it. If it keeps things off my crops, I'm more than happy. Yeah, I'm going to dig those in and then put my watering system in, and they're going to have to survive on their own. I think they're just about big enough. I did find one rather large snail on the bottom of one of these pots, so the slugs are already out. If you've been around and watching my channel for a couple of years or so, you will be aware that I've had an interest in health. So much of what we're told about health simply isn't true. Many of the things we're told are generated by the big companies to increase their profits. For example, the classic one is milk. Milk builds strong bones. No, it doesn't. It destroys our bones, which is why the 4 countries with the highest consumption of dairy in the world have the highest rates of osteoporosis and bone fractures. It's just marketing, you know, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I digress. And sometimes I think to myself, Martin, just get on with life, live your life, and don't worry about it. And then the other half of my brain says, well, hang on a minute. If you know what the truth is, then maybe you can make small steps to improve and do the right thing. For me, it's more about my children and grandchildren. If I can help prevent them making some of the mistakes I've made through no fault of my own, just through general ignorance maybe is my fault. Anyway, I learned something this week, and it's about microplastics. With imaging technology improving, we're now realising that microplastics are not only bad for the environment, the oceans, etc., they're bad for us. And they are now, when they do post-mortems, they're finding microplastics deposited all around the body, especially the brain. And I watched this research scientist this week saying the best way for him to explain it to the layman is when they extract the microplastics from a dead person's brain in modern Western society, there is enough microplastics to make a small plastic teaspoon in the brain, not the body. That was quite alarming to me. And he said, and of course that will definitely be contributing to all the mental health and other, dementia, etc., etc. That cannot be good for us. So we've, like I said, make small steps, makes changes. We've changed all our lunch boxes, etc., for glass. I mean, the lid is plastic, it has to be for the clips. But of course the food doesn't sit on the lid, it sits in the bowl, so it's not in contact with plastic. Now, my mother was a Tupperware saleswoman back in the 70s, so... And of course, she and I and nobody else knew anything about microplastics, but if your food is in contact with plastic, even food grade plastic, it is absorbing micro amounts of plastics. And do you know one of the worst culprits, and this is really bad news, the humble tea bag. That tea bag is made of paper, but if you dropped it in a hot cup of tea, the paper would just deteriorate. So what they do, just before they hand it over to you, they spray it with plastic, and then when you drop it in your brew, the plastic melts away and you drink it. I don't know why I'm laughing, it's not good news. Anyway, I'm now thinking, I haven't mentioned it to Cheryl, but I'm thinking, should we go back to the old leaves, tea leaves? I mean, when I was a nipper, that's how you drank your tea. You had a tea strainer. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, and with this glass, I'm gonna have to be careful when I eat my lunch with glass, but anyway, I thought it was mildly interesting, and there's humour in everything if you look for it. Well, there you have it. 6 you cheeky buggers in the ground. Looking forward to seeing the fruit develop on them, as long as they survive the slug onslaught that is inevitably coming this week. So they were sown on the 14th of April and planted out today, the 25th of May. They're on their own. Good luck, fellas. And of course those bottles look a bit silly right now, but when these plants are huge and the leaves are massive and you can't see where the plants originate, you just drop the water in the top of those bottles and it goes straight down to the roots. Fantastic. The best ideas are the simplest. A friend of mine went to a party this week with his wife. Very posh house they went to, very posh people. And they had a lovely time, and they were driving home and they were talking about the house, as don't we all? It was very, very nice, he said, very nice, lovely house, really posh. Thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. Have to say, never seen a gold toilet before. She said they didn't have a gold toilet. He said they did. Definitely a gold toilet. She said they didn't have a gold toilet. He said they did. I used it twice. Anyway, she started to doubt herself, so when they got home, she said, I'm going to clear this up. So she rang the hostess the next day and said, I've been talking to my husband about our lovely time at your party, and I just want to clear up, do you have a gold toilet? And the lady on the other end said, darling, I think I found out who's shit in your trombone. Obviously that's not a true story. I just thought a little humour would go a long way. Is it just me, or does anyone else find earthed up potatoes very pleasing to the eye? It's one of the most attractive sights on an allotment, I think. Well, so far my spinach is doing quite nicely. Well, of course most of it's planted down that centre row of tomatoes. I don't know if spinach and tomatoes get on together. They don't seem to have fallen out yet, and it's growing away nicely. Carrots all appear to be doing well under this fleece or mesh, as are the parsnips. Well, trying a new one this year, Evergold. This pumpkin was sown on the 14th of April, as were the other squashes, planted today. I do have quite a lot of Charmant pumpkins in reserve if these get eaten. Always have spare plants. So we'll see how they get on. Well, the wind's blowing up a right old hoolie now, but anyway, that's a lot better. I've got a few bolted onions to take home for Cheryl and I to chop up and try and save, and there's about 25-30 onions still okay, more than I thought. Oddly, more down the bottom end that haven't bolted. Maybe it's just a bit wetter down there. Anyway, it was a boring job, laborious, but it's done for the time being. I'll do a bit more weeding in the week. Well, another day bites the dust. So I've taken all the usable bolted onions. They're in the back of the van to take home. Cheryl will be pleased. It hasn't emptied that bed, but it's certainly given me a bit more space, and I will need that space because I've got more crops coming on. I mean, I haven't got a leek in the ground yet. They're growing quite nicely, and they'll need to go in soon. But yeah, it's all going very well. The black fly have arrived on the broad beans, but hopefully I'll harvest them before it gets too bad. That's my hope. That's why I start them off in the autumn. Let's hope that works. And that's all my squashes in. So that's every bed now planted with the crop I intended for it. The leeks I always intended to be a second crop once a first crop comes out. I did have in mind the broad beans, and that might still be the case, but I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. Taking out all those onions has given me the opportunity to get a couple more sunflowers in the ground, and maybe that's where the dahlias could go for the summer. We'll see. Anyway, it's all going very well. I'm very happy with the way it's going on the plot. We'll probably be around next weekend, I'm not sure. If I am, I hope I have your company. Thanks for watching, thanks if you've subscribed, and hopefully I shall see you next weekend. Until then, look after yourselves, take care, bye for now.